Welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, fresh back from the Amazon. Now, I want to remind you guys that you could catch us on Twitter at SkiBucks1, the number 1. Josh will put that up. Or you can email questions to us. We'll always answer listener questions. Joshua at EPSF.com. He's also going to put that up. And Josh got a new haircut, so he looks new and fresh. And he's excited to take your emails. Also, you can call 1-800-344-2534. Who knows? You may even get to talk to me. Probably not, but you may. And on Thursday mornings, every Thursday, I'm on WCRF in Cleveland, 103.3. On Thursday mornings, 8 to 9 a.m. And you can also get the app at Moody Radio, moodyradio.com. You can get their app for the iPhone, for an iPhone or for an Android, and you can listen no matter where you're at in the world. I did want to give you an update, though, on TJ and Max, the new dogs that I just got. There's still a lot of learning to do. They're young, they're wild. They remind me, like if you could put 4 legs on a bullet shot out of a gun, it would be these dogs. I was riding a 4-wheeler, and TJ was keeping up with me at 27 miles an hour, running side right next to me. And Josh is going to put up some pictures of TJ and Max. Of course, they're named TJ and Max because my wife wanted to name them after something that was very important to her, spiritually, emotionally, life-wise, so she picked TJ and Max. They are still bolting out of the yard when they're out of the electric fence, and they got a lot of learning to do, but they're going to be great dogs someday soon. And on the missions trip, I just got back from the Brazilian Amazon. We're in a small town called Maués. And we fly into Manaus, big city, 2 million people. We take a public ferry about 20 hours downriver to Maués, which I call the thumbprint of an armpit in the middle of the jungle. It's where our sister church is at. Then we get on our church boat there. Church boat is modern. We're going to put up some pictures of the mission trip. You can see the boat. It's got flush toilets, a nice kitchen. You get to sleep in a hammock if you want. There are a couple of bedrooms up there on the second level, and there is air conditioning on part of the boat, so it's not all bad. And the food is great, but we'll put up some pictures. But you could go on this mission trip next year if you want to go. We don't take everybody that wants to go because some people are not equipped to go, or health-wise, they're not in a position to go. But most people are. So if you wanted to go, we're already planning next year's trip. If you can't go, but you want to be part of it, you could support the trip. We always want to take a pastor or somebody who, in general, is not going to be able to afford to go. And it's not really that expensive to go. It's about $2,000 if you have your passport already. You don't need a visa for Brazil. So about $2,000 depending on the price of the plane ticket. And then we pay to be on the boat. And really, we're the reason the well gets dug because we're bringing the money. And we were able to drill a well at a great village, had about 38 families in it, 60 kids. Some of the people on the team, especially a lot of the women, my wife is a school teacher. There's other professional women there that work with kids. We're able to do children's church with about 60 kids. It was really something to see. And they had fresh water when we left there for the first time. So we also got to support our missionaries while we were there, groceries and things that they need. I want to remind people, too, Levon and I took a little bit of time after the mission trip, and we just took a stay down in South Brazil. And what we noticed is that inflation is really bad in Brazil. And Argentina's got like 60% inflation right now. So if you have missionaries that are around the world, and they may be experiencing inflation that is dramatically worse than what we have here, especially in countries that are considered, Brazil's not really a third world country, but there's third world places in it. The inflation is way worse there because they just don't have a dynamic economy. So if possible, and I want you to be thinking about this, if you haven't bumped your missionaries up in support in a while, this would be a good time. Now, the good thing is that the dollar, the U.S. dollar, is really strong around the world, so a little bump goes a long way. And again, if you're watching the video, there's going to be some pictures that you could see of TJ and Max and of the mission strip. There's the boat is on there, I think the village with the kids, the well site, the team, a picture of the boat that we're on, why we're doing the well. And really what we do is we live on the boat, on the river, and we walk into the village. We don't really go into the jungle unless we ask them to take us into the jungle. I have been in the jungle before, pretty deep in the jungle. You could get lost there in about 10 seconds. It's dark. It can be dangerous. So we really want to stay out of the jungle as much as possible and do what we're there to do, which is deliver the gospel, fresh water, work with the kids. My wife saves stuff for months and months and months to take to the kids. So candy, because we're taking candy, we take toothbrushes. Most of them have never had a toothbrush before, so we teach kids how to brush their teeth. It's really a great trip. And so whether you can go or not, you could support the trip, and we'd love to do that. Okay, so mission trip is, we're going to do that next summer, and I will give you dates as we get closer. We're going to be planning that in the next couple of weeks. So I want you to think of the economy right now. The whole reason for the podcast is to talk about money, economy, politics. That they kind of all merge together. It's like a three-legged stool. And so something that the political branches do will affect the economy, which will affect the stock market. So I feel like it's incumbent on me, it's my responsibility to talk about all three things. So the Fed is very active in the market right now. They have a Fed meeting next week. They're going to raise the federal funds rate by 75 basis points, so 75 bips, 0.75%. That means mortgage rates are going to go up, credit card rates are going to go up. I think they're going to do 75 or 50 basis points in August because the PPI, the Producer Price Index, this last month came out at 11%. And the way that I think about the PPI is it's very indicative of what next month's Consumer Price Index is going to be. So next month's Consumer Price Index also going to be pretty hot. Now, the housing market is starting to show some cracks. It's starting to falter. One of the things that we saw in the housing numbers this last week was single-family housing. It is the cherry statistic in housing. It's where builders make the most money. It's where they want to be, is off 8% year over year. So we're starting to see that happen. Mortgage rates are climbing. So the demand for fixed-rate mortgages is way down. They're taking a step to variable rate mortgages. So they're saying, well, look, that fixed rate 30-year mortgage, it priced me out of that house. I can't buy that house if I do that mortgage. So I'm going to take a chance on a variable rate mortgage. And that's where you're seeing it's not going to get better. That's not going to get better right now because the Fed is going to continue raising interest rates. And every time they go up, I mean, just by a quarter point, you price people out of the housing market. So you're taking some pretty big bites at this apple right now. And I want you to think of it like this. The economy, the things that we're doing right now is kind of like the Titanic. And the Fed is an iceberg. And they're trying to sink this economy a little bit. That's what they're trying to do. Or better yet, something that more people might know is the economy is a punching bag, like the things that boxers hit. And the Fed is Mike Tyson. And they're going to come out and they're going to beat the stuffing out of that bag and maybe bite its ear off. They're trying to slow things down. So there's two ways to get out of inflation. Either you increase supply, and this administration, so we have, even though fuel prices are backed up somewhat, they're still really high. And that affects everything downstream. So you think, well, I'm going to go buy a tomato. Okay, go buy your tomato. How did it get to the store? Well, it got farmed with something that takes diesel fuel. And then it got put on a truck that delivered it to a central location where it got picked up by another truck, all using diesel fuel, and it got taken to a train or a plane. They all use gas or jet fuel of some kind. Then it got driven someplace or delivered, and then it got put back on a truck and driven to the store. If every link in that supply chain takes gas or fuel of some kind, which it does, then it's going to be more expensive because fuel's more expensive. So they control the demand side. If you could increase the fuel and bring it down, which we could do, by the way. We were energy independent just 2 years ago, and the administration has made a decision to not do that. They want to switch to electrification. They want you to drive an electric car. And the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, just said yesterday, it's really, it's kind of hard to imagine why people are having such a hard time getting away from their gas-powered cars. It smacks of me to elitism. I think they're detached from reality right now. I really don't think that they're being very smart. So what's next? Well, what's next is the Fed is going to raise rates, and they're going to slow down the demand side, which they have control over. So they're going to make it so people want less housing, and that's going to slow things down. And you're going to see what I consider to be a wholesale repudiation of the administration's policy in November. The administration right now is somewhat directionless except on energy, and it's kind of an inexperienced White House. And I think they're going to pay the price for that. I think they've miscalculated their priorities and how America would react to it, and I think they're going to pay a pretty substantial price. Now, when that happens, the market will recover a little bit into the end of the year because of divided government. Probably not to new highs, but I think we're going to recover quite a bit of this lost ground that we have. I also think that COVID. I'm watching the numbers today, and they're up in a lot of places, but hospitalizations are way down or even non-existent in some places. So COVID will be here. We're going to deal with it. California went back the mask mandates. I think that's a big mistake. Hospitalizations are going to decrease or be non-existent. I think inflation has a pretty good chance towards the end of the year of flattening out, and even in some sections of the economy, backing up a little bit. And that's going to be... So we had 9% consumer inflation last month. If you had no increase in that, that's the first sign that the Fed's actions are really starting to take hold. That'd be a good sign to them. The market would like that. Well, everybody would like that. Nobody likes inflation like this. We like 2% inflation. 2% inflation is kind of the grease that keeps the economy moving. And we can talk about that next week, why we like some inflation. We don't like deflation, and we don't like excessive inflation. We like to be right there in the middle because it gives us a little leeway. And I also think that the unemployment rate, which is now 3.6%, eventually is going to go to 5% plus. And that's going to be the key that the Fed can kind of slow down and maybe even stop rate hikes. If we get to like 4.5% from 3.6, I think the Fed would go back to most likely 25 basis points at a time. And we're taking some pretty big bites at this apple right now at 75 basis points. And I think it's almost inevitable now that we have at least a shallow recession. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of these crippling recessions that we've seen in the past. It's not going to be 2008. You may not even realize that we're in a recession. In fact, there's a chance that we could be in a recession right now. And for most people, because we're kind of flush with cash from the pandemic and people staying home still, and so they're spending less on things like gas and clothes and work-related things, we could be in one right now. We're going to find out relatively soon if the second quarter was recessionary, but I do think that a recession is pretty predictable right now. The 2-year and the 10-year government bond rates have been flipped, where the 2 years paying more than the 10-year. That's a very high recessionary kind of tell, and there's some other things going on. So I think that is going to happen. But by and large, I think the market is going to probably go higher into the end of the year, so I don't want you to miss those things. And remember, too, that all these things are cyclical. So power is cyclical. If the Republicans take over the House and Senate, they'll find a way to screw it up at some point in time and give it back. And the same thing with the presidency. It's just power is very, very cyclical, where people kind of get sick of a party, or they just do something that's not in the best interest of the country, which I think is what is happening right now, and they pay the price for it. So don't lose hope. Keep the faith. I know money's important, but it's not the most important thing. And from a financial guy, I know some people say, well, what, should you be in finance? Well, yeah, this is the exact attitude we got to have in finance. I think what we are doing in the mission in Brazil, or if you have missionaries in different places, I think that is pretty important. I think that stuff is important. We're called to go out and spread the gospel to people, to bring the gospel to people who have never heard it before. And in a lot of places where our missionaries work, our missionaries and your missionaries, nobody would even know those people exist if it weren't for those missionaries. So if you can support them, if it's in your budget, even a small upgrade or just maybe raising their support $20 a month could make a big difference to them, especially in the places where some of these people live. So I want you to stay positive, stay focused, stay tuned in. If you have questions, call me. You can always email Josh. You can call us, and you can get us on Twitter. And remember, every Thursday morning on WCRF, you can call in and ask questions. And you don't need to be in Cleveland to do it. You can do it from the app. I am David Safransky. This is Financial Revelations, and we'll see you next week.